Re-Zero, Arc 7, Chapter 68, Guidance of the Sword Wolf.
Gustav, wait for a moment, Schwartz. Now, let me look over this until I get to a good place to leave off. Having said this, Gustav did not even take a fleeting glance towards Subaru, whom he had summoned to the room. His gaze remained cast towards the desk, upon the letter in his hands. Led by the guard, Subaru had been brought to the highest stratum of Jinnenhive. Behind a door that looked luxurious, Subaru was greeted by a simple, plain room. Contained inside the spacious room was nothing except a desk to be used for work, a bookshelf to be used for work, and a toolbox to be used for work. Since the room was too spacious for one to know what to do with it, it was possible that there had been more things filling it originally. The room to be used by the governor, which had been stripped of everything unnecessary for his work, had a very tidy look to it, which was actually reassuring, since it was the reverse of Gustav's serious nature. Subaru, you say to wait until you find a good place to stop, but there aren't any chairs. Subaru was at a loss when Gustav had ordered him to wait in the room, but if he was told to wait, he didn't have any other options. Having nothing to do for the moment, Subaru looked around the room until his eyes encountered a person with a clearly foreign presence. He found him, or rather, found him casually waving towards Subaru with a sodden look on his face. Cecilius, hey, Basu, you sure worked hard. You have some business with Gustav-san. Subaru suppressed a sigh and walked up to the fake Cecilius, who spoke to him in such an easygoing tone. Wondering what he could say, the relationship between Subaru and the fake Cecilius had become a bit more complicated again. To an extent, Subaru's participation in Sparker was the result of being instigated by the fake Cecilius, although Subaru did think he would have joined the Sparker even if there had been no dispute. Subaru, Ceci, I still really wanted to get back at you, there is no doubt in that. Cecilius, my. Getting back at me sure is quite the ambitious goal. Is that why you joined Sparker? If so, then I'm sorry. Subaru, you're sorry? Cecilius, no, you see, I didn't go to see the Sparker that was going on earlier. Subaru's jaw dropped open at the fake Cecilius, who had stuck out his tongue in a quite indifferent manner. However, a surge of anger that screamed "You bastard" immediately arose, that Subaru had become quite determined to dispute with him, and that Subaru had also rushed in for the sake of overturning what Cecilius had said, despite seeing it before his own eyes. Subaru, why you bastard, HK, Cecilius, now, don't be angry. Okay, I do understand your feelings of wanting to be angry, but it happens to be the case that I have my reasons too. Subaru, then how about you let me hear 'em? They'd better be good, or else. Cecilius, I knew the outcome without even needing to see it, you know? Basu would have finished it quickly with a perfect showdown. Then there was no reason for me to go, since my life wasn't on the line after all. Subaru, since he showed no reaction to being hounded, Subaru backed away from the fake Cecilius and his unchanging mannerisms. To be honest, Subaru was aware that for everything he did, it was only natural for Hyan to call him a creepy little brat. Subaru, from the perspective of an onlooker, it would be pretty fitting to also call Ceci a creepy little brat. Cecilius, it may be that the people who achieve supremacy will always be incomprehensible to others, you know. In this case, both Basu and I fall into that category. Subaru, well, you really seem to think highly of me. Cecilius, yes, I was relatively convinced this time around. So rest assured and continue to do unconventional, off the mark, daring and misguided acts. Subaru, I don't want to be off the mark or misguided though. Subaru's lips twisted in protest at the fake Cecilius, who was unreliably spouting a bunch of those sorts of words. Then, at the tail end of their back and forth, there was a heavy report of a slam on the desk. When he looked, it was Gustav who had finished reading a letter that had made the noise. Gustav rested his chin on two of his crossed arms, placing the remaining two arms on the desk. Subaru was impressed that with 4 arms, he could do nifty things like these. Subaru, I wonder, if you were to put all 4 hands together, would it be too big to put your chin on? Cecilius, well, that's a good question. Gustav-san has a properly large face, so it may surprisingly be that stacking 4 hands on top of each other would make it the perfect size. Could you put them on top of each other for a minute? Gustav, do you two lack the consideration to be quiet? Common sense would dictate that if you are waiting for someone to read a letter, silence would be valued. Subaru and Cecilus, but you didn't say anything. It had been a childish reason which lacked logic, but Subaru's and the fake Cecilus excuses had overlapped with each other. Because of that fact, Subaru's feelings towards Gustav had become those of guilt. If he shared the same view as the fake Cecilus, it meant that Subaru had behaved absurdly. Subaru, Gustav-san, I'm sorry. My bad. Cecilus, aren't you pursuing a thought that feels somewhat unconvincing? Be that as it may, since you've admitted your fault, so I'm going to blame everything here on Basu. Gustav, Schwartz is, in my official estimation, more humble for having uttered an apology. In addition, I do not recall officially granting segment permission to enter this room. Subaru, oh, is that so? Well then, why are you here, Ceci? Cecilus, naturally, that's because it's my policy to be where I want to be, when I want to be there. No one on this island can limit my freedom, so I think that's reasonable treatment. Nonchalantly, the fake Sclius uttered about how he conformed to nobody. Subaru looked to Gustav with trepidation, but the island's chief was still conflicted, his eyes closed and his brow furrowed. It seemed that the fake Cecilus story was not a lie, but of course, Gustav was not willing to overlook the situation, is how his position seemed to be. But, Subaru, no one can stop Ceci, huh? Cecilus, yes, that's right. It's the so-called special treatment, namely, for that of the lead actor of this world. Subaru, I don't really get what that means, but, although expressed in a peculiar way, it was not hard to understand what the false Cecilus had been trying to say. Only, if the fake Cecilus was not making a mistake, in that case another major contradiction would arise. Such a contradiction was something that Subaru could not ignore. Subaru, so Gustav-san, you said you wanted to see me, but is it okay if Ceci stays here and listens to us? Gustav. Segment, Cecilus, please don't bother. Nobody would be able to drive me out. Don't worry, if what you talk about is related to me, it'll reach my ears, and if it's not about me, I'll forget about it quickly. My ability to forget is amazing. It's even possible that I'm forgetting a lot of important things at this very moment. Subaru, that's not amazing at all. Both Subaru and Gustav had given up at the insolence of the fake Cecilus, who was puffing his chest out. Finally, without a change of the room's occupants, Subaru headed in front of Gustav. The fake Cecilus watched on with his hands folded behind his head and his back against the wall. It was an inspection by a terribly strange actor. Subaru, forget about Ceci in the back, you called me. Gustav, of course, it is a warning of punishment for your case of misconduct. Subaru, isn't this going in circles? A low voice interrupted his statement, and Subaru frowned as he muttered, the rules of the Gladiator Island. After the warning came the punishment, and it was said that beyond that, lay a death at the hands of the curse rule. Regardless of the final conclusion, for a warning to come after the punishment was the incorrect order of things. As Subaru pointed this out, Gustav's expression did not even twitch. Gustav, Schwartz, you made a statement before me, the official, that threatened to disturb the order of the Gladiator Island. You ignored the warning, and consequently reached the stage to be administered punishment. Are you not aware of this? Subaru, yeah, I am. Gustav, then, you must vow to never speak of it again before me, the official. That you are planning to escape this island, or any other plan to oppose the will of His Excellency the Emperor. His expression remained unchanging and unmoving. The look in his eyes and the color of his pupils also did not change. His tone of voice had a quietness akin to a giant boulder, yet it produced an overwhelming air of intimidation. If he was a bit more emotional, such as being angry or annoyed, then it would be easier for Subaru to understand. However, neither anger nor annoyance resided within Gustav. Subaru, an absurdly strong sense of duty. Gustav, Subaru, Gustav-san, do you owe His Excellency the Emperor a debt of gratitude? Gustav, are you attempting to sidestep the question? Subaru, it's not like that. He did not intend to sidestep it, nor was he in a position to. Gustav did not seem like he was willing to let Subaru leave without getting a firm pledge from him. Therefore, Subaru's question came from suspicion and interest towards the genuine Gustav, since he roughly understood the position of the person Gustav called His Excellency the Emperor. Gustav, I have no personal connection with His Excellency the Emperor. As governor, I have been entrusted with the management of this island. To endeavor, in my capacity, in the professional duties of my position, that is only natural, is it not? Subaru, you're saying that being overly serious is just your personality? Gustav, it is somewhat dishonest to describe the performance of one's natural duties as being serious, though, is it not? Subaru ducked his head, not having intended to make fun of him, but it had been taken as a slanderous remark. Nevertheless, Gustav's answer was not what Subaru wanted. Whether this was Gustav's true intention, or a front to hide it, he did not know. It was something that was impossible to know about Gustav without learning more about him. Subaru, in Gustav-san's case, I don't think I'd be able to get in your pocket even if I tried 5 or 10 times. Subaru's successes to date had been due to what he believed to be a kind of suspension bridge effect, created by the extreme conditions in which he had been placed. In the midst of Sparka, where lives were on the line, Subaru's words, spoken with an air of knowledge, seemed to pull everyone's attention away from their own situation. Getting to know them was the biggest reason why Natsuki Subaru was able to surmount the Sparka. However, this method was quite difficult outside of Sparka. Gustav, Schwartz, what is with that face? Subaru, no, I was wondering how I should melt Gustav-san's frozen heart. Gustav, there is no such correlation between heart and ice. I ask you to refrain from speaking in the same manner as Segment. For the sake of not increasing the seeds of headache burdening me, in my capacity. Subaru's frivolous comments were answered seriously, and there was a hint of a laugh from the fake Cecilus in the back. Subaru and Gustav exchanged glances as they cooperated to ignore it. Then, they returned to the question that had not been answered once more. Gustav, you must once again pledge, Schwartz, that above your activities as a gladiator of this island, you will obey me in my position as the governor. You shall refrain from doing anything that goes against the will of His Excellency the Emperor. Subaru, closing his eyes, Subaru repeated Gustav's statement in his head. When Subaru made a proud declaration that he would leave the island, Gustav gave him one warning, and when he still did not correct it, he sent him to Sparka with the goal of punishing him. If what the gladiators said was correct, it would be a warning followed by a punishment, and if that didn't work, then the penalty of the curse rule. Then, there was something Subaru had to make sure of. It was the confirmation that was absolutely necessary for Subaru and the others to get off this gladiator island. Gustav, Schwartz, your answer. Subaru, absolutely, no. Gustav, in response to the low, insistent question, Subaru proudly raised his voice, his chest puffed out. Gustav's brow furrowed at the answer as he went silent. After seeing this silence, Subaru immediately understood that the true meaning of his words could not be conveyed in the way he had just said them, and so needed rephrasing. Subaru, no means I refuse. I'm sorry, but I can't accept what you say, Gustav-san. I've already decided that I'm going to get out of here, no matter how stupid it may be. Breaking down the words that may not have been understood, Subaru spoke again. To escape from the gladiator island, Jinelhive, and said to none other than the island's governor, Gustav Morello himself, with complete confidence. Gustav. Subaru's answer was not what Gustav wanted, of course. He let the astounding sternness of his face simmer, without changing his expression or the intensity of his eyes, simmering, like magma waiting to erupt. Gustav, Schwa, Cecilus, ha 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 ha. A moment later, a high-pitched laugh forcefully disturbed the magma that was about to erupt. The one laughing hysterically was the fake Cecilus, who was in the back of the room nonchalantly eavesdropping on their conversation. The fake Cecilus, laughing hysterically, wiped away tears from his eyes with his fingers as he laughed. Cecilus, absolutely no. He says it's absolutely no. I don't know what a no is, but I personally really like it because it gives me a strong sense of rebellion. Well, but Basu, you just don't know fear, do you? Well, I don't dislike that, in fact, I like it. Subaru, yeah, I see. Well, I think of Ceci as a creepy little brat. Cecilus, ha 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 ha. The fake Cecilus never stopped laughing, as he slapped and stomped his feet on the spot. Despite the laughter of the fake Cecilus pouring cold water on them, Subaru's words of rejection to Gustav were not diminished. Gustav, Schwartz, as the official, I have warned you and punished you for not recanting your comments. Furthermore, I have given you another chance to rectify your attitude, but you still have no intention of doing so? Subaru, yeah, I don't hate you or anything, Gustav-san. It's the Empire I hate, Gustav. In my capacity, I do not possess the right to twist your subjective opinion about your individual likes or dislikes. Outspokenly, Gustav said he did not care if he was disliked, but it was true that Subaru did not dislike Gustav. Subaru did not know him well enough to decide whether he liked or disliked him. To make a decision about someone based on first impressions would be such a ridiculous decision. Subaru, that is, unless they kiss the hand of a girl I like, of course. Gustav, Subaru, I was talking to myself, about someone completely unrelated to this. Subaru glanced at Gustav, regretting the words that came out of his mouth so suddenly. From Gustav's point of view, Subaru must have been the most troublesome child to deal with. Even though he sent Subaru to Sparka under the guise of punishment, Subaru had not shown any repentance. Gustav must have realized that Subaru did not take it as a punishment, and if that happened, Subaru, beyond warning of punishment, will you actually reprimand me? Gustav-san, Gustav. If you do not recant your opinion, at worst, I, in my capacity, am compelled to do so in accordance with the authority vested in me, as the official. Subaru, I see, then, why don't you do it? Gustav, tilting his head, Subaru replied to Gustav in a matter-of-fact way. Hearing Subaru's words, Gustav's expression shifted slightly. It wasn't an action that caused him to wrinkle or rub his brow, but his cheeks stiffened. It's not that he's pondering, that's the reaction of someone who has been hit in a sore spot. Subaru, you can use it to punish me, the curse rule that's been put on all of the gladiators on this island. I'm a cheeky brat who doesn't do as he is told at all, and Gustav-san is the governor here, so making an example out of me should be perfectly acceptable. You can do it. But, Gustav, Subaru, Gustav-san won't do it. No, I don't think he can do it. There was no rebuttal from Gustav, who was thrust into silence. Subaru probed for what the silence meant, as he continued with his thoughts. The curse rule was the main reason why the gladiators of this island were afraid and restricted in their actions. At the will of the governor, Gustav, the gladiators, who were inscribed with the curse mark, could be deprived of their life. Subaru suspected that Gustav could not use that deterrent. Subaru, I asked Old Man Null, the gladiator who has been living here for a long time. He said before Gustav-san's arrival, Gladiator Island was a lawless place, and there were more deaths from either injuries or illnesses. But things have changed a lot since Gustav-san arrived. Fewer people die. Gustav, it is the natural duty of an administrator. To begin with, a gladiator should use their life for the island's shows, and they should avoid losing their lives due to other factors as much as possible. Other than for shows, the same is true for daily death matches. Opportunities are provided to maintain tension and competence, but it is equally important to avoid dying in situations other than the real thing. Subaru, yeah, Gustav-san wants to prevent the unnecessary loss of gladiators as much as possible. I felt that too, from the days I've spent here. Surprisingly, you've got good employee welfare, Cecilus, employee welfare, more words I don't know that get my heart racing. The fake Cecilus was caught up in questioning Subaru, but Subaru was not going to play dictionary. Even for Subaru, this was an important moment. Subaru, I think the reason they allow deaths in Sparka is to maintain the quality of the gladiators, and maybe to keep the other gladiators on their toes. Gustav, Subaru, it was said before, once you become a gladiator, the rules here are much more lenient. But, it's not desirable for gladiators to learn to slack off in their lives here. Therefore, they have to participate in Sparka. That makes them more nervous, but also reassured. Gustav, reassured, how? Subaru, it's relieving that we managed to become gladiators. To Gustav's question, Subaru answered while clearly looking him in the eye. In many ways, when Subaru thought about the purpose behind Gustav's actions, that was the feeling that seemed correct. There was, of course, the possibility of having missed the point, but there was not much to lose by asking. That was when you were laughed at, or when you were flatly denied. Gustav. But Gustav chose neither, he instead remained silent. Subaru, Gustav-san wants to prevent the gladiators' deaths as much as possible. On the other hand, he doesn't want gladiators to get carried away or become insubordinate. That's why sparkers are used. It just feels right when I think about it that way. Gustav, sounds like a reasonable theory. But, it's not reasonable evidence for why I, as the official, am not activating the curse rule. It's more of your wishful thinking. Subaru, there is one more basis for this. It's Ceci, who is rebellious and gets carried away. Cecilus, what, me? Subaru raised a thumb, motioning behind his back, and the fake Cecilus widened his eyes at Subaru. When Gustav's eyes glanced in that direction, Subaru nodded broadly. The fake Cecilus was a cut above the rest of the gladiators in his unruly behavior, including him having openly participated in the discussion between Subaru and Gustav. Naturally, some sort of warning and punishment should have been given to the fake Cecilus, but he did not respond to them at all, in a separate way from Subaru. If that was the case, it would not be surprising if the fake Cecilus would be punished before Subaru. And yet, Ceci is safe. Although, it is possible that Ceci was Gustav-san's personal favorite, but that doesn't seem to be the case, especially for Gustav-san. Gustav, quite discerning. As the official, I do not hold any favor towards Segment. But I am firm in not letting any likes or dislikes reflect in my duties. Cecilus, hey. Are you telling me that people don't like me? Good grief, I'm sorry for taking center stage everywhere I go. Subaru, your mental strength is too much. The fake Cecilus was quite unconcerned in spite of the rather direct accusation. It would be difficult to grow to have his kind of personality without having been that bold. Regardless, the continued existence of the fake Cecilus was a fairly strong basis for Subaru's theory. In other words, Subaru, Ceci is not being punished either. I'm as much or more of an eyesore to Gustav-san as Ceci is. On top of that, what do you make of my refusal to do what you just said? Gustav, Subaru, do you intend to punish me with the curse rule? Gustav-san, what will you do? Gustav's eyes narrowed subtly in response to Subaru's question. Gustav, the multi-armed man with 4 arms on the desk, had his chin planted on 2 of them and the other 2 resting on the desk, as if he were hugging it, as Subaru waited for his answer. Subaru's intention must have been conveyed to Gustav by what he had said so far. Subaru was not just provoking him, telling him to do it, but trying to confirm that there was no such thing as a curse rule that held the gladiators' lives in its hands. Gustav was intimidating with his stern appearance and oppressive demeanor, but he believed him to be very careful in his management of the island. Whatever his intentions in following the instructions of the emperor, and despite appearances, Gustav had managed to govern the gladiators on the island not by violence, but by law. If you overcome the Sparker and become a gladiator, the gladiators would soften up from their new situation and not become unruly. And if you keep them on their toes by holding regular Sparker, making them think that they don't want to participate in another Sparker, then you won't have any more people wanting to fall under the curse rule that follows the punishment. With that double safety, the chain of the non-existent curse rule kept the gladiators' feet tied to the ground. This was Subaru's understanding of the true form of the curse rule system that enveloped the gladiator island, and whether this was correct or not would be revealed by Gustav's subsequent actions. If he was provoked and the existence of the curse was questioned, all the rules that Gustav had laid down would be circumvented. To prevent this, Subaru would definitely have to be punished by the curse rule. Subaru continued to stare at Gustav, attempting to discern the answer. In the face of Subaru's gaze, Gustav remained silent for a while, and then, Gustav. Schwartz, I'm sending you to the next Sparker. And so, as if giving in, Gustav did not take Subaru's life. Cecilus, it was certainly a complete victory, but how are you feeling, Basu? When Subaru left Gustav's office, the fake Cecilus, who was alongside him, asked him that question. Seeing that carefree attitude, Subaru let out a big sigh. Subaru, what are you saying? Is Ceci my enemy? Or my ally? Cecilus, gosh, that is an odd question. I'm the one who went to the trouble of pulling Basu and the dear girl out of the lake, remember? Considering that Basu and your companion might have died if I had not been there, doesn't it make my position obvious, Subaru? Yeah. Well, are you my enemy? Or my ally? Cecilus, which do you think is more interesting? Subaru asked once more, paying no attention to his long, useless monologue, and the fake Cecilus answered with a question. It was a flippant question, and Subaru was irritated for a moment, but it was a completely different tenor from his confrontation with Gustav. The exchange with Gustav was a critical turning point that could make a big difference going forward. But the question of the fake Cecilus was, Subaru, it doesn't matter which one I say, Ceci will decide according to his mood at the time. Cecilus, spot on. By the way, I'll say I'm leaning toward your side at this point. For now, my intuition is whispering to me that it would be more interesting to watch Basu's bizarre activities. However, even I can't trust my mood, so do be plenty cautious. Subaru, I'd like you to at least have a good grip on your own steering wheel, rather than simply being a moody person. In the case of fake Cecilus, he was a very dangerous moody person. He thought it was amazing how the protagonists of various games and manga chose their party members so well, like they were accompanied by battle freaks and berserkers. When he thought about it, Subaru felt sorry for himself because he had always struggled to select party members since he came to the Empire. Subaru, my Emilias and Beertromin deficiency is about to reach lethal levels. Cecilus, ho ho, again with the unfamiliar words. Are these also local words from Basu's hometown? Subaru, more like terms I coined, the dream substances that make up half of my being, like a medicine half made of kindness. To say that half of Subaru's being was made of affection for his loved ones was not an exaggeration. It was an exaggeration, but he would stand by it. That was why the dialogue with Gustav earlier was so significant. Subaru, it's annoying that Ceci was right, but it certainly got the desired response. Cecilus, joining in the next punishment? Or, Subaru, naturally, I'm talking about not being killed by the curse rule. As for Sparker, well, yeah, Subaru, against the wishes of His Excellency the Emperor, publicly declared his intention to escape the island. Seeing that he did not punish him with it, Gustav invoking the curse rule was a virtual impossibility. No, he could not do it. As a result of that confirmation, he was given the punishment of participating in the next Sparker. Cecilus, in any case, it's not a harsh blow for Basu, since he was planning to participate in Sparker anyways. Subaru, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that I was planning to do it anyway. I wouldn't want to participate in a scary event like Sparker if I didn't have to. Cecilus, I see, got it. It's a stock phrase to liven things up, right? Subaru, it's not though. Subaru brushed the back of his molar with his tongue as he replied to the unjust suspicion of fake Cecilus. Should he attend another Sparker as he did today, he would still have to rely on the medicine. It was a depressing thought, but unavoidable. In any case, Subaru, another plan in my mind has moved forward. I don't know how much longer my relationship with Ceci will last, but don't get in my way. Cecilus, I'll keep those words in mind as they were spoken after all kinds of struggles. Now, what in the world is Basu going to do? Subaru, While talking, Subaru and the fake Cecilus were descending to the living quarters where gladiators were gathered. Subaru's eyes widened at the sound of the fake Cecilus' strange remark, and he turned his head to look in the direction he was looking. Tanza, Schwartz Summer, it was Tanza, standing at the end of the group that occupied the table in the middle of the hall, who called out to Subaru. In the hall where Subaru and the fake Cecilus had arrived, in the area for meals there was the largest number of gladiators he had ever seen, and in the center of them were the members of Subaru's unit. It seemed strange that the antisocial whites, the socially anxious Idra, and the reserved Tanza would be there. For the loud and full of false bravado Hyan to be there was not so strange, though. But what surprised Subaru more than the unexpectedness of such a lineup was the fact that, Subaru, what's wrong with everyone? Everything got quiet all of a sudden. Scratching his cheek, Subaru asked the people in the hall with a forced smile. For some reason, As soon as Subaru and the fake Cecilus entered the room, everyone went quiet and stared intently as if they were scrutinizing them. Everyone, keeping silent, they steadily watched Subaru and Cecilus. No, they watched Subaru. That was the first thing that made him uncomfortable. He could understand the reason for their reaction if they looked at the fake Cecilus and sank into silence, because the fake Cecilus was an eerie brat, feared and hated by the gladiators. However, it was not the fake Cecilus they were looking at, but Subaru. Tanza, Schwartz-Summer, we have been awaiting your return. Then, Tanza slowly approached Subaru, who was still wondering about that reaction. Her polite words made Subaru's skin crawl, as he responded, "Oh, yeah." Even though Tanza's polite way of speaking was normal for her, for some reason there was a pervading feeling of tension. Or rather, it was not Subaru and Tanza who were brimming with tension, but the atmosphere of the entire hall. The room was ill at ease, and that sense unconsciously made him choke up. "Subaru, you said you were waiting for me to come back. Oh, you were wondering why Gustav-san called me, right? Sorry to worry you. It went fine and..." Tanza, "No, that is inconsequential." Subaru, "Inconsequential?" Tanza, "More importantly." Subaru was surprised to be cut off so quickly, but was silenced by Tanza, who quickly approached him, and Subaru recoiled with an oof at the force of it, only to be caught from behind by the fake Cecilus. Glancing back, the fake Cecilus, who seemed as happy as ever, blocked Subaru's escape route with an unthinking look on his face. It pissed Subaru off. "Tanza, Schwartz-Summer, I have a question I would like to ask you. Would you please answer?" Subaru, "Oh, yes, sure. If it's something I can answer." Tanza, Schwartz-Summer, "About your father." Subaru, "About my dad?" Tanza asked him with a quiet look on her face, and Subaru frowned, not understanding what she meant. Tanza came to Subaru with such a forceful air of importance, and asked Subaru about his father. What was more, it seemed that the question was not only raised by Tanza. Subaru, the heat in the gazes of the gladiators staring at Subaru was growing stronger. Hyan, Whites, Idra, and naturally the other gladiators too, were all holding their breath, and seemed to care what Subaru would say to Tanza's question. None of it made any sense to him at all. However, "Subaru, just so you know, if I tell you about my dad, it'll be a long story, okay?" Tanza, "Please try to be brief." Subaru, "You asked and then you put a condition on it. Huh, come on, already." Roughly scratching his head, Subaru sullenly grumbled, "Uck." But such an attitude did nothing to divert Tanza and the others' interest. Subaru didn't understand why the topic of telling them about his father was brought up, but, "Subaru, my dad is my idol. He's super cool, loads of people love him, and he's always at the center of everyone's attention. What can I say, he's charismatic. Like he was born with the disposition of a natural leader, he's amazing." Tanza, always at the center of a great number of people. Subaru, "He has a lot of people depending on him, and his work seems tough too, but he always has time for me and he teaches me a lot of things. I respect him so much. He's super cool." Tanza, as he spoke, the face of his father and the face of his mother who loves his father came to mind. Subaru felt a sudden surge of warmth behind his eyes and clutched at his chest. Now that he was in this other world, it was both joyful and very painful to remember the two of them. But, as painful as it was, his cherished parents were the pillars that supported Subaru's core to this day. Tanza, Schwartz-Summer, that is. Subaru, "Yeah." Tanza hesitated for a moment before saying her next words, perhaps considering what she saw in Subaru's expression. But, having said all this, Subaru would not be offended no matter what Tanza asked him. Thinking this, Subaru waited for Tanza's next words, and after waiting for a while, Tanza said, "Tanza, what is your father's name?" Subaru, "It's..." Subaru tried to answer Tanza's question but hesitated. With a sentimental feeling, Subaru tried to answer Natsuki Kenichi as usual, but this would have been a bit complicated. Since Subaru was known as Natsuki Schwartz on Gladiator Island, the combination of his family name and his first name was reversed. On the other hand, telling them another name, such as Kenichi Schwartz, would have added to the complications, with little benefit. So, Subaru wavered for a moment and then said, "Subaru, Sorry. I can't tell you my dad's name. Tanza, HK, Subaru, Tanza. The moment Subaru replied, Tanza's expression visibly stiffened. Her eyes were wide and wavering, and her round cheeks were tense and tight. And, though he was surprised by Tanza's reaction in front of him, it was not the only thing. Whites, seems it's no joke, apparently. Idra, is it possible? Well, no, but it was that conduct that led us here. Hyan, SC, I told you. How about that? Am I still crazy? Well, oi. The gladiators in the hall, led by the members of Subaru's unit, began to make a commotion all at once. Subaru was very puzzled when they exchanged glances with each other and started talking noisily. What could be the reason why everyone was so surprised? Subaru, guys, everyone, dash. The commotion receded as soon as Subaru called out to them. Subaru felt a pang of loneliness. Whites, Schwartz, whoever you are, we're not going to think of you differently. Whites was the first to speak to the anxious-looking Subaru. Whites had scary-looking tattoos on his face and all over his body, but the words he said were out of concern for Subaru, and were probably meant to reassure him. Idra, I agree. I mean, I have come to a point of understanding. I am more than ready to cooperate with you. Schwartz, Hyan, yeah, that's right. What's the matter with you bastards? He ain't any different. He's a gladiator just like us, he's my bro. Following Whites' words, Idra thumped his own chest, and Hyan, running up to him, put his arm around Subaru's shoulders and turned back to the gladiators as he spoke. Aside from Idra, Hyan's behavior had even Subaru bewildered, but, right. Great kid, that Schwartz, I knew that you were no ordinary guy. That's the only way to explain it, yes, the guidance of the sword wolf we serve. Thank you for this day's charities and fortune. At the words of the 3 unit members, the silent gladiators erupted in cheers. The voices echoing through the hall were so loud that they sounded as if they might shake the entire gladiator island, and Subaru's amazement intensified as they went round and round. But before he could fully process the surprise, Subaru was being vigorously pushed by Hyan. Hyan, hey, we haven't even finished celebrating today's Sparker yet. You're the one who made the big splash this time, so make some noise, bro. Whites, Hyan, you're totally self-interested? Hyan, it's all good ain't it? Come on, open up a seat for bro. Bring meat and drink. Pushed by Hyan, wearing a big, undignified smile, Subaru was crammed into the middle of the large crowd of gladiators. Orson and his teammates, who had returned from the healing room and fought together in today's Sparker, were there, raising a modest toast and welcoming Subaru's arrival. Orson, thank you so much for today. Schwartz, it was good you were with us. Subaru choked on the words in his throat as he was greeted by teary-eyed lizardmen. There was a mountain of things he wanted to say and questions he had, but the words exchanged at this moment were more than enough to reward Subaru's challenge of Sparker. Subaru, thanks for saving me, too. And so, for the first time in 3 days, he shared with them the bone-in meat that was brought out one after another. Cecilus, miss, aren't you going to make a racket with them? Tanza, my position is complicated. Whilst looking over the crowd of people noisily clamoring together, Tanza mixed in a sigh with her reply to the boy who was talking to her, a boy who looked exactly like a person she knew, with the exception of his height and the length of his limbs. She was hesitant to express her feelings to him, unknowing of how much he knew about the situation. Naturally, that was regarding the black-haired boy's surprising identity which Hyan had brought about, but also about the complex feelings Tanza had when facing that person. Tanza, Yorna Summer. As she joined her hands together with her kimono, Tanza thought of her beloved master, and then, with the wish Yorna harbored, the personage not unrelated to that wish, and the boy seemingly not unrelated to that person, it was a side chaotically being stirred up. Only, if there was something she wanted say clearly, Tanza, I have no other way but to rely on Schwartz Summer. Was it really okay for her to believe that? Those doubts had been removed, at least that much was true. After that, even if she did not know how far they could go together, Cecilus, I see, your expression truly is complicated and at a loss. There is indeed a sorrow afloat, isn't there? Tanza, Cecilus, oh dear, Basu sure is a guilty guy too. isn't he? Well, however, she glimpsed the boy beside her, without regard to her feelings, smiling brightly out of the corner of his mouth. But that smile appeared to be more ominous than any smile the boy had shown until now. Tanza felt a faint shudder as she listened to the boy's next words. Those were, "Cecilus, if things don't start moving soon, my patience is probably gonna run out." Just kidding.